Hi, welcome to Hot Mess History. I'm your Hot Mess hostess, Janet, and today we're going to be going over part 2 of the assassination of Franz Ferdinand and why it was so important to our global history. Before we dive in, go ahead and like and subscribe on this channel to get updates for new episodes and content. If you have any suggestions on any topics that you'd like to have covered, go ahead and leave a comment. I'm always looking for new things to study and learn about, so go ahead and drop the topic. We'll see what happens. I know a lot of people think that history is boring and just the practice of memorizing a bunch of dates and names and things that happen. And while it's important to remember when things happen, I personally don't focus so much on specific dates, but rather time periods and the cause and effect patterns of history. It's like a big puzzle for me, and that's where my obsession lies, figuring out the puzzle, unraveling that web of how things are connected. I mention this because in this video, I'm actually going to be putting emphasis on specific dates, contradicting myself a bit. But that's only because it's important to know just how quickly the events we're going to discuss occurred and the consequences of those swift actions. Before we dive in, I just want to do a quick recap of what we've learned from part 1. The Austro-Hungarian government occupied Bosnia-Herzegovina. Serbia hated the Austro-Hungarians because they wanted the occupation and to absorb Bosnia into a greater Serbia. Germany was Austria-Hungary's backup in the event of any military action, and everyone was afraid of Germany. Russia was backing up Serbia, but they were bummed and hiding because they'd lost a war to Japan. So Serbia was without that backup while Russia worked itself out. Because they had no assistance to overthrow the Austro-Hungarian occupation, Serbia decided to fight back in a covert fashion by creating a secret society, the Black Hand. The Black Hand was led by a man named Dragutin Dmitrievich, who was not very good at assassination planning. The Black Hand found the perfect target for Dmitrievich's assassination obsession, Franz Ferdinand. The assassins were clearly trained according to Dmitrievich's standards since they failed at their planned attempt. Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie, were in fact assassinated, completely by a chance encounter and a wrong turn by Gavrilo Princip. Okay, I think we're all caught up. As we discussed in part 1, Franz Ferdinand and Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo, Bosnia on June 28, 1914. Directly following the deaths of Franz and Sophie, the Austro-Hungarian government sent Austrian police into Bosnia to investigate the assassination and to find the culprit responsible. All of the would-be assassins, and Princip of course, were located, imprisoned, and found guilty by July 5th. The Austro-Hungarian government certainly knew how Serbia felt about them, but at the time of the investigation, there was no implication that the Serbian government was involved, and there was certainly no knowledge of the existence of the Black Hand. Despite the lack of evidence implicating the Serbian government's participation in the death of the Archduke, the Austro-Hungarian government was determined to punish Serbia. They had a lot of help and encouragement to do so from their old buddy Germany. Russia, of course, had been watching the events from a distance, but felt that if they didn't step up and support Serbia through the investigation, it would set the entire Slav movement back and prove catastrophic to the shared belief in a greater Serbia. On July 5th, Kaiser Wilhelm II, who was the last German emperor and king of Prussia, sends Russia another message through some back channels, reasserting their support to Austria-Hungary if Russia were to consider attacking Austria-Hungary on behalf of Serbia. Germany was essentially acting like a mean girl and encouraging Austria-Hungary's anger towards Serbia and urging them toward war. Germany really just wanted a chance to get at Russia, and they knew that if they could push Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia, Russia would be in the game, and Germany could swoop in and get in on the action. July 23rd, Germany encourages Austria-Hungary to issue an ultimatum to Serbia with terms that were so humiliating that there was no way Serbia would agree. At 6 p.m., Austria-Hungary issues the ultimatum. Serbia, you must agree to these terms or else. 1. You will have to allow Austro-Hungarian officials into the country to investigate the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. 2. You will suppress any and all anti-Austro-Hungarian propaganda. 3. You will find and eradicate any and all terrorist organizations, like the Black Hand, that we don't officially know about yet. If you do not agree to these terms and respond within 48 hours, this means war. Best regards, Austria-Hungary. News of this communication and its terms spread across Europe, and the world awaited with bated breath to see what Serbia was going to say. While waiting, of course, everyone's talking, and most foreign governments can see this action for what it really is. Germany's fingerprints are all over this, and it was obvious to everyone that Austria-Hungary didn't have the finesse or guts to have thought this all out on their own. July 25th, 5:55 p.m. Serbia responds. We agree to all terms except one. We will not allow Austro-Hungarian officials in our country. We don't like you guys. We don't have anything to hide, but you're not allowed in. Best regards, Serbia. July 28th. Austria-Hungary cuts off all diplomatic communications with Serbia and declares war. With the declaration of war from Austria-Hungary to Serbia, Germany is giddy with delight and can't resist sending Russia another instigating message. Russia, don't forget, if you take Serbia's side, we'll be forced to step in and kick your butt. You can prevent all of this if you just stand down. While Russia is still afraid of another defeat like they suffered in 1905 to the Japanese, they say enough is enough and begin mobilizing their troops, while Austria-Hungary bombs Belgrade, Serbia. It is on. July 30th. Germany can't declare war on Russia fast enough and begins mobilizing their forces. While doing this, Germany sends a message to France, who was an ally to Russia, demanding, in the form of a request, not to mobilize in support of Russia. They really didn't want to fight a war on two fronts if they could possibly avoid it. France says that they'll consider it, but begins to mobilize their troops just in case. On August 3rd, Germany hears about France gathering their troops and takes this as an act of aggression and declares war on France, attacking them by marching straight through Belgium before France has a chance to build up more secure defenses against an invasion. August 4th. Belgium does not appreciate being literally walked all over and says, bruh, you can't just do that, you know? We haven't done anything to anyone. Belgium declares war on Germany. And guess who is an ally to Belgium? Great Britain, who also has to declare war on Germany to back up Belgium. And just like that, all of Europe is at war. Let's take a moment to reflect, shall we? With the assassination of one man and his wife, an entire continent is now at war. From June 28th to August 4th, decisions were made that would affect the entire world and literally change the structure of the world, geographically, economically, militarily, and psychologically. By the time the ceasefire and armistice were declared in 1918, an estimated 10 million would be killed and 20 million wounded. The terms of peace would be just as devastating as the initial declarations of war, and in my opinion are what led to the very beginning of World War II. But that's another story for another day. Don't forget to like and subscribe for new and updated content.